As the story continues, the analyst walks through the forest as a shoe hits his face.
Ow! Did I just get hit with a shoe?
Said the analyst, who was clearly hit by a shoe.
Who throws a shoe? Honestly.
Anyway, he tries to find the owner of said shoe.
Well, if the person who threw this shoe, she's got to be nearby. And speaking of shoes, Cinderella, everyone.
Tatsunoko Productions is at it again with another fairy tale adaptation. Clearly we know what the story's about, so there's no point of me telling you about it.
So, we know how the story goes, but how does it differ in the anime? By the way, where's the analyst? All right, I just need to read a story. Oh, and I was going to suggest installing a chip in him as well. Oh well. At least I have fun reviewing this. The series itself gives us more in depth to our classic characters and the lead up to the main part of the fairy tale. One very good example is the prince, which we will get to later. Now, before we get to the stepmom, minor note, if those are supposed to be ugly stepsisters, then I'm a Spanish midget. Okay, the stepmom. She tries to either A, try to get her daughters to get the prince, and B, tries to get rid of Cinderella. Oh, and the father doesn't die in this version. Now, this raises a question that's been bugging me for a while. And that is, what is her problem? Is she really that ticked off that her father left Cinderella with her instead of the money? Is she venting her rage on Cinderella because of that? Look, there is a lot to rant about, not to mention all the stepmother's BS that I could call out. But that would take longer than the review, so I will say this. As evil and cruel as she can be, let's face it, at the end of the day, she's just some bitch whose only accomplishment in villainy is to make one person suffer. That's not exactly something that shouts out, greatest villain. At least in comparison to, say, massacring a family at a wedding, or cursing an entire kingdom for 100 years. Those things say, whoa, that villain ain't messing around. I ain't fighting that guy. But with the stepmother, come on. I don't even need my device to kick her ass.
In other words, it's the same thing over and over again.
Oi! I'm doing the narration for this episode. Anyway, she may be realistic in terms of what can exist, but that doesn't make her dangerous and such. What are you looking at? Ah, a staring contest, eh? You're on! Whew. Man, that was tense.
While the reviewer catches his breath and basks in his victory in that deadly staring contest, we also have the psychic animals in this version, comprised of 2 mice, a dog, and a bird. They're okay characters. Bingo and Choo Choo, Patch and Pappy, and later Misha the cat. Yeah, the cat, who's supposed to be evil but isn't. The animals talk, and right on screen, the explanation is magic. But it's delivered well. Nice timing, I think.
Also, there's a subplot involving a coup d'etat, involving another villain named Zarel. No, that's Zakel. Zarel, the other antagonist. And yes, he wants to take over the kingdom. And get this, it's called the Emerald Kingdom.
And no, it is not Oz. Also, quickly, call Zorro! The kingdom must be saved! Now bear in mind, this series is 26 episodes long, so things like this is going to happen. Also, there is a list of what to expect from the show. Other stuff in this anime include the following: helping out Cinderella via magic, a false fortune teller, a travelling circus, other parties and festivities, a couple of matchmaking episodes, a bandit and his son, a shrinking spell, an eccentric painter who literally practices the dark arts, a haunted forest, and of course, after all that, the fairy godmother transforms Cinderella into a magical gives her a magical makeover. Now, we all know that part about Cinderella and not being able to recognize her, either because no one actually sees her, or that certain people wouldn't think of her that way, like the Step family. And or because of magic being involved. Which, I can see why the prince wouldn't recognize her because of that. But how do you explain the prince when he is in disguise? Yeah, in this version, he's in disguise. And he has no mask, or glasses, or different hairstyle. He has the same face and name. And even if there is a reason, like Superman for example, it would still come off as more like drawing straws. So there is no excuse. How stupid can they be?
Well, to be fair, the king is with his staff and all that, etc., etc., etc.
Etc., etc., etc.
Again, drawing straws. And weak! And if anyone should figure it out and put two and two together, it's Cinderella! Giving Serena a run for her money, as it seems. Speaking of Sailor Moon, even she would be more convincing than the prince. Apparently, the status quo clouds one's judgment. Only in episode 23 is when she finally figures it out. Also, there are some odd jump cuts here and there. That makes things feel inconsistent. Luckily, the many flaws that I've mentioned are outweighed by the wholesomeness. The prince isn't a cardboard cutout. The support characters, like the prince's page, teacher, Zarel's daughter, etc., they feel like well-rounded characters. Not to mention the odd explanations answered, like why Cinderella has to return to midnight. In episode 4, it's established that certain spells wear off over time, like a horse that is turned into a prince, but later back into a horse again.
In other words, it's the same thing as Disney, but without the music.
They never established the spells wearing off in the Disney version. As far as we know, the fairy godmother was messing around with her. They still don't exactly explain the glass slippers and how it only fits her, but I have a theory. Since the slipper is enchanted, it might work in the same way like Thor's hammer, and only a worthy owner can wear it. Hey, at least I'm trying to find an answer to that. The last two episodes are very good to okay. And though Cinderella and the prince do live happily ever after, it's how they go about it. And that makes it more interesting.
As for the stepmother, she lives. Personally, I would have seen her killed and the stepsister's eyes gouged out. Like in the Brothers Grimm original.
Me too. Or at least have the dad divorce her ass. But seriously, what the heck? They go as far as attempted murder on Cinderella. But as soon as she gets her happy ending, they are all nicey nice. At least with the Snow White anime, the evil queen had an excuse. What's theirs? And you could say they are sucking up, or Cinderella has forgiven them, or even they realise that she is worth loving. But there is lack of context on the issue. You know what would have been good as a redemption arc? They could have had a scene with them saving Cinderella from Zorel, or something. Maybe in a sequel, the story of Cinderella 2, Zorel's Revenge. So, final verdict. This anime gets my seal of approval.
Wait, you're still giving it a seal of approval after all that?
As I said before, the main flaws that I've mentioned are outweighed by the wholesomeness. And this anime was still good enough. Now for the moral of the story. And that is to never judge a book by its cover and treat others with kindness. Or otherwise, you'll end up like a dumb twit who can't spot a disguise even if it's blatantly obvious, with bad karma to boot. Or you somehow manage to learn the lesson and become nice.
What? This is your anime analyst speaking. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go find the owner of this shoe.
As the analyst found the owner, he was not mad, for he was granted a reward in the form of a check.
Pretty good. Now, how the hell do I get out of here?
With good fortune smiling upon him, he continues to find his way home. Till next time.
My eyes! I can't see!
Careful!
Ah!